holistic healthcare, homeopathy, naturopathy, acupuncture, hypnotherapy, and other alternative forms of healthcare for overall vitality and well-being. From the Renaissance Health Center in Las Vegas, it's the Healing the Whole Body podcast. Hi, everyone. It's Heather here. I am so excited to introduce you to Lauren Capone, who is also my sister. I know we don't really look that much alike. She ended up with, I think, our dad's side of the gene, Dr. Fowles, and then I ended up with my mom's genes. Anyways, Lauren's been incorporated into Renaissance Health Center's practitioners list of holistic therapy. And so I reached out to Lauren to see if she would like to tell us more about her practice and how she can help you guys over here at Renaissance Health Center. So if you want to tell us just a little bit about your background and how you ended up getting into it.
Yeah, so that's probably a long, complicated story, but I guess I'll just share like highlights. I have been interested in emotional well-being for such a long time. So interested in like how people have become who they are and what leads them to this point in their life, and mostly like their emotional and mental wellness and like what their past experiences, how that forms and shapes who they are now. And so I had a lot of different jobs and like nonprofits and working in different like rehab facilities, and I was a flight attendant for a year, but that was a little, that was like a detour. And then eventually I decided to just pursue this kind of like deep exploration of like mental health and wellness and like work with, at first I worked with individuals. And so I went to NYU and got a master's in mental health and wellness counseling, which really was like a holistic lens at looking at people's mental health, and incorporating like a wellness aspect, like how do we achieve like overall and holistic wellness in someone's life, and take kind of more, I think it's really easy in like the mental health field to focus on like everything that has gone wrong in a person's life and all of the things that are showing up for them that are presenting as maladaptive. But what I really appreciate about my training is that like looking at a person's like strengths and also like how have they become like a strong individual despite like setbacks, and using their strengths and really encouraging like a general healthy lifestyle that's like incorporates like nutrition and exercise and breath work and meditation. And so yeah, after I finished my degree, I received some mentorship in couples counseling, and that kind of just opened up a whole new world to me about like how our partners touch on our deepest emotional wounds and like how that can just like open up a whole other aspect of healing for us, in a way that we can't do as individuals, and even in a way as sometimes can happen in individual sessions. But it's like I can maybe like see a person's like deepest emotional wounds in the first 2 sessions in the couples counseling session, rather than if I were in individual sessions with them, it takes a little longer.
That is really
that's
fascinating.
Kind of where I ended up, where I am now, doing mostly couples counseling.
And so how are you seeing like these couples are coming to you? How are they finding out about you and coming to you? What is it really that they're wanting to address even in the first place, generally?
Yeah, so I mean, people present with a lot of I see a lot of like betrayal or infidelity, so wanting to repair a relationship where there's like infidelity. Also codependence, people who struggle to be an interdependent in relationships. So that means like you're not totally dependent on, codependence is when you're totally relying on someone else's, for them to stabilize your own emotional well-being and to feel safe and secure, which is like not what we want. And then the opposite of that would be like total like independence, like 2 people just like kind of living separate lives and kind of like sharing a home together and a family or something, you know, like we don't want that either. We want like to strive for like interdependence, which means like people can totally like self-support and like emotionally sustain themselves. And if they're partner is having a really difficult time, they don't get kind of like sucked into that vortex, but they're not unaffected by it either, right? There's a lot of like empathy and compassion and support for their partners also. So there's people come like wanting to create a more interdependent relationship. A lot of issues in like communication, like it's actually like it's a big issue, I think, for all of us, like the issue of not really knowing how to communicate well in emotionally charged situations and conflict. And so there's a lot of like communication issues, miscommunication, like defensiveness that happens in conflict, that I help clients really build skills of like empathy, validation, and perspective taking. And those, I would say that like that is like the major concern that I see people coming with, is like really don't know how to work through conflict. Because like I said, like our partners, like they touch on our deepest emotional wounds from childhood. And so like our inner child comes up in those moments and wants to like fight and finally be heard. But then we're not using like our adult rational brain, which would like lend to more like compassion and rational thinking, and like building a bridge between our partner and really understanding our partner, because we're in this like defensive protective mode where we just like need to like defend our self-interest and like forget our partner, which obviously doesn't lead to very like close connected relationships.
Basically what you're saying is every couple needs to see
you. Basically. Or any couples therapist, but yeah.
Because no relationship is ever perfect. I think we all know that, right?
No, and like they're not meant to be, actually. Like a presence of conflict in a relationship is like a really healthy and natural thing. And something I like to say is like conflict is like the vehicle to growth. Like if we don't have conflict in our relationships, then like we're just stagnant. We don't really know our partners. We're not growing as individuals. We're not growing closer together. We're just avoiding issues because we don't know how to handle them, or we're dismissing our partner's issues, which make us feel like disconnected and not safe in the relationship. Because like there is going to be conflict, and like that's a good thing. We just like, it's not a good thing when it leads to like when it leads to like criticism and shame and blame, and like it leads to like partners shutting each other out, or like not welcoming their partner's experience, or downplaying it, or minimizing it, or pushing it to the side. And so I love conflict. I think healthy conflict is amazing, and healthy conflict involves like a lot of like empathy and perspective taking, and it takes a lot of like self-regulation, and it requires that the prefrontal cortex is online so we can like think rationally and like be adults.
Some people, but what is adult? Being an adult, even just defining that, what does it look like to be an adult, I guess, huh? And being you're referring to more specifically maturity, like emotional maturity, emotional stability.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm referring to like emotional maturity. So that's what it means, like to use our prefrontal cortex and like show up as like, we can like list it and what it looks like to be like an emotionally mature adult. So that means like that we are showing up in a conflict and we are not being overcome by our anger, our frustration, our sadness, our overwhelm. And we're creating a lot of space for like us to listen to others, like genuinely listen and be empathetic and compassionate towards like what their experience is. It's so often, and like really this can be like the adult emotional mature brain can be like defined in terms of like the way the brain is even structured. So like when we result to like the back office brain, or like the primitive brain, where it's like the amygdala is like, it's all about like self-protection, all about like sensing danger in the environment and like protecting us against it. That is like the emotional irrational brain that is like totally centered on ourselves, totally centered on like protecting ourselves and like defending against anyone else's like opinion or perspective that could like potentially make us feel unsafe. And a lot of my work is like figuring out like, well, like what about that is making you feel unsafe? Like what about that in your history is showing up now that feels dangerous, right? But then like when our prefrontal cortex is online, it's like we can use our information from our emotional brain. So we can say like, okay, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling scared, and we're able to like assertively and compassionately communicate that to our partner. So we're showing up as an individual, being like emotionally vulnerable and like allowing our partner to see vulnerable parts of ourselves, while also like taking into consideration like their experience and their vulnerabilities and how they're experiencing us, and like complete empathy and compassion and acceptance of that.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can feel the difference in your body even when like you're becoming like overwhelmed with emotion, right? Like we feel like our heart races, we feel tense, we like feel hot, like our skin will feel tingly, like our ears will burn, you know, like there's so many indications that we're like in our emotional brain, and like some childhood trauma is like taking over, or we're like becoming overwhelmed by the situation, where like our prefrontal cortex will be able to objectively stand back and say like, I'm having a big emotional reaction to this. Maybe now is not the time to tell my partner everything I think or feel about them. Maybe right now it's not like a good relational moment to like, you know, unleash all of my like past grievances and tell this person I think they're such an asshole, right? Like, because it's just not.
Or
That's
all the
not
many
going to help
times you've
you.
cheated on them or something like that.
It's just like not like the time, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like our prefrontal cortex is like lends itself to like compassion, empathy, assertive communication, and like openness
Mm-hmm.
instead of being closed off.
Um, so you're married, and how long have you been married now? 5 years? 6 years?
7 years, yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
I have a fabulous wedding photo of our whole family on your wedding day framed in my house, and I love it. And I can't believe
Oh,
that was
too.
7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like you've explored this more just from being married?
Oh, yeah. You know, like when I got married, I barely knew my husband. I'll just be like honest. Like we got married like so fast. And then I think I just like wanted, like I had this idea what I thought marriage was. I just had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for the first few years, I felt like I was like playing a role of what I thought like a good marriage or relationship looked like. And then come to find out that like I have a lot of emotional wounds and trauma that was showing up in our relationship. You know, like he would behave in a certain way and I would be totally overwhelmed with emotion. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I would feel totally lost, abandoned. I would feel like I didn't matter to him. And, you know, all of this came to a head. At one point, we had a big um, kind of like come to Jesus moment in our relationship, and we separated for a time. And we really had to like work on all of this stuff. I was like ready to leave, you know? And then like we did couples counseling, we did individual counseling. We like came as more authentic versions of ourselves to our relationship, and we like committed to like communicating in ways that were like empathetic and compassionate, and like working on healing our own stuff. And like I can say like my husband now is like the person who knows me the best, and like we really work on like, you know, like the conversations that we have now are so different than the conversations we had our first year. Like
That's awesome.
I'll become so upset, and then I'll be like, I know that what this is bringing up for me is like how I feel in relationship with so and so, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like how I feel. And this is reminding me about like this memory from childhood, and like I'm feeling so lost. I'm feeling like you don't care. I feel abandoned. I feel like, you know, and then he'll be able to say to me like, I thought that that might have been what my action might have made you feel, and you know, I'm so sorry. And like we both take so much accountability now, and we show up and we're able to like respond with like love and compassion. And still like that doesn't mean that we don't get hurt, and that doesn't mean that we don't like take responsibility for when we hurt our partners, but like the level and depth at which we know each other now is like so much greater, and like how we like help each other grow into this more adult, emotionally mature version of ourselves is like this gift that I didn't even know marriage could give me. You know, I didn't even know that's like what marriage could do.
Well, you're giving me hope just by talking about this. Because, I've been divorced for 13 years, And I honestly, every year that passes, I celebrate it, the divorce. I feel like
Yeah.
it's the best thing that happened to me. But being single, though, isn't, always the happiest and brightest. The grass isn't greener on the other side. And so I have come to the conclusion personally that I will never get married again. I don't feel the need to.
Mhm.
And I really am so perplexed when people are married and stay married or they get married. I just don't even know why and understand. So
Mhm.
that perspective is really beautiful, and I appreciate that for sure. Um, so when you're seeing your patients, are they seeing you in person? Because I know you're in South Carolina, and are a lot of the patients you're seeing them over Zoom mostly? Are you saying? And where are they
Mm,
generally located? All over the
yeah.
U.S.
Yeah. So, first I want to address like what you said is that like, yeah, I think that like obviously like relationships come in so many different forms. Like my relationship comes in the form of like I'm married with kids, right? And so like that's my little microcosm to like heal my past trauma. But like really like we get hurt in relationships and like we heal in relationships. So that's like any relationship that's bringing up
True.
like emotional trauma for us, like that's a
Yeah.
friendship, that's like, I mean, parents, that's like kids, our kids are so triggering to us.
Oh,
Like, my
100%.
kids are incredibly triggering to me. Like, I'm like, they don't listen to me. And I'm like, of course you don't listen. It's like so much anger erupts in me, but it's like, that's not because like my daughter is 4, she's not listening. Like, of course she's not going to listen to me. That's because like I have a history of not feeling listened to. Like
Mm-hmm.
that anger is not for her. That's my own stuff. And so, like, anyway, I just say that, like, like I love couples counseling because it's such an obvious way that we like touch on each other's triggers. But like this can happen in any relationship in which we deeply care about someone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that perspective. Yes, I've now acknowledged the fact that I am not a failure, and just kidding
No.
about not actually being able to stay in a relationship long term since being divorced.
Hmm.
But I've looked back at these relationships and I have learned so much from all of these guys and these relationships. And I'm just really, truly grateful for them because it's helped me grow and understand and learn more about myself and opened up so many channels and avenues of experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah, that's such a beautiful thing about our relationships is that they just like challenge us and they like force us to grow and like they provide these new experiences for us. So yeah, that's why I like couples counseling so much. But I'd really do relationship counseling for anyone who's struggling through these kinds of things. But
Mm-hmm.
um, to answer your other question is, yeah, I meet with couples over a platform called Doxy. It's a telehealth platform, but yeah, it's basically like Zoom. And most of my clients right now are in New York. I was living there for a while. I just moved to South Carolina, and so still seeing most of my clients in telehealth, like, oh, they're in New York seeing them telehealth. Yeah.
Nice. Um, and what would be the best client for you through Renaissance Health Center? And I would say pretty much any couple.
Yeah. The thing that is like so fascinating about like relationships and couples and like the stress that we feel in relationships is that it really does like have like an impact on our physical health. Like not feeling emotionally well, feeling like a lot of distress in a relationship or a partnership, and like there's so much that we can do. Like I refer my clients to acupuncturists, I refer my clients to nutritionists, I refer my clients, obviously like the homeopathy and all of that. And that is such an excellent way of like treating like the body, because the body plays such an important role in mental health and wellness. And also like if we're talking about like healing, really healing, like the underlying symptom, like we need to get to like the trauma, the root of the dysregulation and like the nervous system. Talk about like how are we talking about ourselves every day, how are we showing up in relationships that's causing like incredible amounts of stress and conflict in our lives. And like if we can handle that better, then that's going to reduce our stress
Mm-hmm.
generally, right? That's going to like impact your mental health and wellness, but also your physical health if you can like reduce the amount of stress in your life because of relationships, which is like relationships are incredibly anxiety inducing and stressful, especially if you don't have like the skills to handle conflict.
So when you have a client coming to see you or a couple coming to see you, then you're giving them the tools to be able to handle conflicts.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like building on a self-awareness of like, why is it hard for them to engage in conflict?
Yeah. And what that could be stemmed back to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that for sure. Do you have any particular interesting stories you'd like to share about maybe a couple or a client that you had at one time? A really great success story?
Yeah. It's like, which one to share? You know, all these couples are like, so like have done such amazing work. You know, I think maybe like to keep it like more simplified, because I could probably like go on and it's like more kind of like I could talk about this forever, and I know we have limited time, but I'll talk about this one couple that came to see me. They came and the wife said that like she just like did not feel heard or understood by her partner. They're like kind of like conflicts would just erupt like suddenly, and like they would both feel so hurt. They would withdraw from each other. They would like, you know, the husband would like leave a bag at home that the wife had said like, will you please grab that bag? And then like it would turn into like a car ride in silence, because they're both giving each other like the silent treatment, you know, and like not, and like feeling one person feeling frustrated that they like didn't hear them, the other person feeling frustrated that they like didn't just grab the bag themselves, you know, like and then they're both just kind of like sitting in the car like pissed at each other, and like don't know really like how to bridge that gap. And you know, recently, like, so we did a lot of work about like communication, did a lot of work about like what's coming up for them and like why, like what's going on and like how to bridge a gap, you know. They come in like the last 3 sessions and they're like coming in, they're just like, Lauren, you would be so proud of us, you know. And they're like telling me, they're like, so, you know, like this event happened, and then like I took accountability for it and I really said I was sorry. And then like the other person were like really hurt and they took accountability for like what they did. And then like they like, I really felt like heard and seen. And like they've said to me, like they've been married for probably like 8 years now, and they said like we feel like we're just like really starting to be in a relationship together. They're like, we feel like we're just really starting to like actually be married and like know each other, and like this is what we thought marriage was going to be, you know. We thought that like we would be each other's like support, that we would be able to like help each other through these like really hard things. And this couple right now, they're going through like major life challenges. Like her husband, I mean her father, the wife's father, he just got a stage 3 cancer diagnosis. They're going through like infertility. They've been trying to have a baby for a long time, all this testing. And like in the midst of all of this like outward stress, they just feel like they're each other's like biggest supports and confidants. Where like prior to coming to couples counseling, they like didn't know if they could share with them if they were like mad about leaving the bag, you know, like. And so like now they just like, they're like, we're telling all our friends, like couples counseling is the shit, you know, like let's do that. Like, why doesn't everyone do couples counseling? Like, we love each other now. Like we always loved each other, but like we're in love with each other now, you know. Like I know I can count on this person. And like, yeah, it's just when couples come to me and like they have like success stories like that, or they come, you know, like it's often they come to a session and they just want to share with me like the successes, like, oh, we could like for a moment we're so pissed and then like we were able to figure it out, you know, like, and we ended like, and this is what like I want conflict to be, is like at the end of it you feel closer. At the end of conflict, like you feel more understood by your partner, you know. And like that's what really my work is about, is like how do we get to that place of connection at the end of conflict where like you feel more seen and more heard and like closer to your partner.
That's amazing. I think that's a really fabulous goal to have, definitely, in any relationship. Yeah, being seen and heard, I feel like, is a deficiency in our society just in general, from what I see around me.
Absolutely.
And I think it is what causes some of the misbehavior and the really bizarre behavior we see around us as well, is because of not being seen and heard. that could stem
Yeah,
back from childhood.
absolutely. There's a huge deficit in like really like true empathy. People think that they're so empathetic until like, like it's one thing to say like, yeah, I get it. It's another thing to like take the time to really understand and listen to someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are seriously at the end of our time. So you can reach us through Renaissance Health Center and schedule an appointment with Lauren. And I'm sure you take some free phone consultations too to see and tell them how frequently to treat you and all of that stuff. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
This has been the Healing the Whole Body podcast from the Renaissance Health Center in Las Vegas. Visit us at iwholehealth.com. That's the letter I, wholehealth.com. Here's to a vibrant, healthy, productive life.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.